Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Russ Morrow, and it's my absolute pleasure to act as host for this week's virtual summit brought to you by NAPW. I'd like to extend a very special welcome to the many NAPW members who are joining us today. For those of you who are not familiar, NAPW is an online and face-to-face community made up of over 850,000 professional women who join together to cultivate valuable business connections, to develop professionally, and to promote themselves and their businesses. If you'd like to learn more about NAPW and the many benefits of membership, please do make sure to visit our website at napw.com. This afternoon's webinar, Taking the Next Step, How to Move Your Business Onto the Next Level, is part of our 3-day virtual summit for entrepreneurs where, over the course of 12 interactive sessions, we will offer some absolutely amazing information and guidance from experts who will provide insights on how to plan, how to launch, how to run, and how to expand your own businesses. Topics covered include how to get started, how to market your business, how to negotiate, how to manage your finances and taxes, and how to build your brand. Before I introduce our guest speaker, a few housekeeping points. You'll be pleased to know that everybody is on mute, so there's no concern about being overheard if you splutter or cough or sneeze. And questions. We know that there will be many. Throughout the session, you will be able to submit written questions, and we hope there will be some time to answer these at the end of the presentation. Depending on the volume, we may not get to all of the questions, but if that happens, we will do our best to communicate them either via blog post or by email. And the question that we get asked every time, will you get a copy of the presentation and will you be able to see it again if you miss something? Yes, you will. Recordings of this webinar and all of the others over the course of the virtual summit this week will be available to view again here on the Bright Talk platform and will be emailed to you. So it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker. I've had the pleasure of working with Suzanne Brown before. Suzanne is a strategic marketing and business consultant, a TEDx speaker, and the author of Mompowerment, Insights from Successful Professional Part-Time Working Mums Who Balance Career and Family. Suzanne works with seasoned entrepreneurs to help them with their high-level strategic marketing and business challenges, such as writing business plans, doing competitive analysis, and understanding market opportunities, as well as helping larger companies work better with their marketing agencies. So during this afternoon's session, Suzanne will share her wealth of experience and give you some amazing tips and guidance on how to move your business to the next level. Suzanne, welcome. Thanks for joining us again, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Russ. I appreciate that amazing introduction. So we are going to cover a lot of things in the course of about 45 or 50 minutes so that we have time for your questions. So fasten your seatbelts, and we're just going to get started. So as Russ shared, I am a strategic marketing and business consultant. I have been doing these kinds of opportunities and this kind of projects for my clients for more than a decade at this point. And I will share that at one point this was a side hustle. This is something that I did when I was still working full-time for a large marketing agency. And so part of what I will share is based on the interactions with my clients and what I've seen. Part of it is based on my research, and part of it is even based on my time at a really large marketing agency where I did things like write business plans for opportunities that they wanted to invest in. So let's go ahead and kick things off. So today we are going to cover a little bit more about business plans. I think some of the other groups that I've listened in on have mentioned business plans. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about them. We will talk about challenges and the ways to deal with those challenges in order to grow your business. We will talk a little bit about how you can plan for growth, and then finally I'll give you some ideas on what I would suggest you have in your toolkit for growth. So we will start with talking about business plans, and this is a topic that I hear on a regular basis. all kinds of questions. And the most fundamental is, do I really have to have a business plan? Now, if you're starting out a business, I think there are some things that you need to be able to cover, and you can literally do that in like 2 pages. If you want to grow your business, I highly recommend having a more in-depth business plan that you have created. Now, normally when entrepreneurs come to me, it is often because they want to get some kind of investment. The reality is, if you want an investment, you must have a very in-depth business plan. And that can be from a bank, from an angel investor, from venture capital, whoever that investor is. You have to have a very thorough document that really shows that you have an idea of what your product or business is and how it will grow over time. Now, the reason why I think this is important, even if you don't plan on getting an investment, is this is really the blueprint for your business. This is the roadmap for all of the decisions that you're going to make to see, like, is this a good decision that's going to support my growth and my business overall, or is this maybe not going to be in my best interest? And if you don't have something that you're using kind of as your check-in document and the blueprint, you're not really going to know how to measure that those opportunities and how to look at those business decisions. The next thing is that you want to be able to talk in depth about the product or service that you are creating for the marketplace. And you don't necessarily have to use that same description when you talk to people, because chances are you're going to want to summarize it in something like an elevator pitch. But you want to be able to have a very in-depth description of the product or service that you're offering. You want it to include your growth goals and your strategy, because that's going to help you understand where am I right now and how am I going to get to the next level, and then the level after that and the level after that. And so you want the document to really be able to tell you how things should look over a 1, 3, 5-year basis. So it should have a long-term element to it as well. There will probably be a lot of target market information in the document that you create, and that's going to really help you with all kinds of different areas of things that you are working on, like your marketing. And then the final thing is, it's incredibly important to look at your competitors and to do a very thorough competitive analysis. I mean, this is something I even do for my own clients, because it's that important as part of your business plan. So the first area that I want to cover is you want to be able to understand pain points of your potential clients, of your target market. And when it comes to where do you find that, the easiest place to find it is through third-party research. And some of that can be as simple as Google. There will be hopefully tons of articles from a lot of different sources. And part of that will be based on things like industry or trade publications. Part of it could be that you subscribe to an expert's newsletter, or that you, one of the best places to get this kind of information is to subscribe to industry research. And sometimes these industry reports can cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that you don't necessarily want to spend, but they will often summarize some good little nuggets in whatever it is that they send out as part of their newsletter when they're promoting these new reports that are coming out. And even that can be incredibly helpful. There might be conferences that you can go to, or there might be events that are done through your local chamber of commerce or through SCORE, which is a nonprofit that specializes in small business. And so they have tremendous resources. And so there are all kinds of different places that you can get this information. And I often hear the question of, well, what happens if I want to get to the information that's essentially behind a firewall? And the best place that I have actually found to get to that information is through the alumni group from my MBA program. They, if you join the alumni organization, and I think it was a fee of like $1,000, I get access to everything that the university has access to on their campus or for their students. And so imagine the journals and the reports that they have access to. And so for that one-time $1,000 or $1,200, whatever it was, I get access to things that when I managed secondary research, when I was still at a large marketing agency, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on these resources. And I actually got access to several of them with that one-time payment. So you can be creative in how you get that information. Now, you want to also be able to talk to industry experts, and those can be people who you meet at conferences, who are the speakers, and so being able to take some of their time afterwards is really helpful, or business roundtables that are provided by some of the local organizations, or there might be happy hour business events that are done, or meetings, or there are meetups that might happen, or your Chamber of Commerce can put on events that are for specific industries. There are the Small Business Association, which is a government organization, because small business is incredibly important to just the economy in general in the U.S., and so the SBA can be really helpful. So can SCORE. So there are also resources like the Kauffman Foundation, which is another group that supports entrepreneurs. There are all kinds of resources as well for women in business. And so you just kind of have to Google what's available in your local area, and a lot of times there are industry experts who speak at these kinds of events. And then the final one is you want to be able to talk to your either current or potential clients. And if any of you listened in to Danielle Tanconi's presentation on marketing your business, she described it as observing, listening, and asking questions. And if you didn't listen in on that, I highly recommend it. She gave some really great information, and she is just a wealth of knowledge. But you want to be able to talk to the people who are either your current clients or who you would like to have as your clients, because you want to understand what are their struggles. What are they having a hard time with? You can create a poll. You could do a survey. There are all kinds of different ways that you can get that information. The one thing I do recommend is creating some kind of survey, even if nobody sees it, but something that you can essentially almost like fill out, so that you can get consistent information over time. And for those people that say or that ask, well, how many of these do I really have to have? The magic number that many for example, venture capitalists look at is like 100. Have you talked to 100 potential clients or current clients about what you're offering to see if this is really a viable business? So we're not talking 2 or 3. We're talking dozens of people that you should interact with to get information. And as you are looking at those pain points, that's going to affect 2 things. It's going to affect your marketing, and it's going to affect the general trends that you create to help you know how to grow your business. So from a marketing perspective, there will be features and there will be benefits based on these pain points that you have found out from the industry experts that you're talking to, and from your potential clients and from your current clients. And so your features and benefits should answer those pain points essentially. And part of that is going to also help you create your unique selling proposition. Why buy from you versus anybody else in the marketplace? And it's also going to help you figure out your marketing plan and just your general marketing needs. So it's no longer that if you build it, they will come, right? Like, it's a matter of hitting the right target at the right time with the right product or service. And that's really what you're trying to create. And then at the same time, you are also trying to figure out those trends. And again, those trends are going to be based on that same third-party research and the industry experts. But I also really recommend that you look at competitors because they might have access to tools that you don't. They might have knowledge that you don't. They might have experts in-house that you don't. And being able to understand what they're working on, and it might even help you understand, like, they're really going to focus on this particular niche within this category. So that might open up other opportunities. But those are some of the things that you want to go in depth with in your business plan. And then the final one that we're going to talk about is the growth goals that you have. Because, as I said, you don't want this to just be a snapshot in time as you are starting your business. You want this to look at the short term and the long term. And a lot of times it's really helpful to think about 1, 3, or 5 years out. The 5 years is a great number, knowing that things can easily change between, the current year and year 5. And you want to be able to actually assess how you're doing against those goals. So you have to have some kind of measurement, and that is largely through whatever key performance indicators or KPIs that you have indicated. And if some of you are like, okay, so what exactly does that look like? Those are things like number of sales or the dollar amount per sale. That can be leads, awareness, going from awareness to sale. It might be how long does it take for somebody to go through your sales funnel, because there is always a customer cycle. For some products or services, it's a super short one. For others, it can take years. And so are there ways that you can compress that so that you're not waiting 2 years for a sale? Or that might just be the nature of what it is that you've created. But that can be a way that you can measure how you're doing. And part of it is also I don't recommend looking at these on a weekly basis. There are certainly some organizations that do, but looking at these on a monthly, quarterly, every 6 months, every year, year over year, you want to be able to kind of figure out how things are going and understand the trends within your own business. But you also need to be able to adjust these performance indicators over time. So you don't want to, just because you said that this is what you wanted when you first started and you created your business plan initially, doesn't mean that this is how it has to stay forever. So, but know what things you want to be able to adjust over time. So we're going to change gears a little bit, and we are going to talk about challenges and how to deal with the challenges, because your business plan really lays the foundation for growth, right? But it's like, what are the things that come up that can hinder your growth? And as I have dealt with clients, there are generally 3 areas that most challenges fall under. And we're going to go into each of those individual areas specifically, but they are business challenges, marketing challenges, and the financial side of things. And so let's start talking about what these are and how you can combat them. So the first one is the business challenges. And this is really kind of more of the supply side. This is really internal to you, and these are the challenges that come up in your business like every day. So for example, it might be, do you have the right people in place? And sometimes as you grow, you might need to have more strategy, and that might mean that you need to hire some senior people. Sometimes you have more senior people and you need to hire more doers to actually get more things done. There are a lot of different ways that you can look at this. I think one of the hardest that entrepreneurs struggle with is that sometimes that right player is actually a new CEO. And that can be a really hard pill to swallow, but sometimes you need more business contacts and you need that extra layer of expertise that will ultimately be your boss, even though you are the founder of this company. So just think through who are the right people to service the target and the target market that you are trying to reach. The next one is from an operations perspective. And really operations and supply chain can work very closely together depending on your product or service. And so this is really when it comes down to, how do you operationally flow from when somebody is a prospective client all the way to having been serviced or having purchased the product for the first time? What operationally does that look like, and where are their challenges? Maybe it's that there are bottlenecks. Maybe it's that you kind of have to hurry up and wait, and there's a bottleneck that takes 3 weeks when really it's just because there's a backlog. So maybe that tells you you need another person in that role. So there are 2 people who are doing that job. So you need to take a really hard look at this, and you want to be able to have conversations with people internally, as well as when it comes to supply chain, you need to be able to talk to any suppliers that you deal with. And these can sometimes not be really fun conversations, but they can be really important, because you can be growing and you can be doing great, and then once you hit a plateau, you look around and you're like, my product hasn't changed, my target is still very interested in my business. It might be that it's an internal challenge. And then the final thing is, it might really be that customer service is where you struggle. And that's where you need to be able to look at the feedback that you get from your customers. And that could be through social media. It could be through email. you want to be able to address those things as they come up, but the reality is that especially if you have a business that's growing very quickly, you might not deal with some of those challenges from a customer service perspective until they become big issues. Because you could have the best product or service in the world, but if you do not have customer service to actually service your targets, then you will probably not have repeat customers. And repeat customers are generally an amazing thing. And I will also say that they generally cost less than finding new customers. So you want your customer service to be as good as it can possibly be, and that can also be a point of differentiation. And I will say just kind of in general, for all of these things, you need to think through, is it time to grow skills? Because you might have the right people in place, you might have the right operational systems in place, but it's that you need to grow skills to deal with growing as a company. Or it might mean that you need to you need to put into place something like technology. So you want all kinds of things working for you, all moving in the same direction. So that's business challenges. Let's talk about marketing challenges. And I will admit that as a strategic marketing expert, I love talking about these things. So I'm going to try to kind of scale back what it is to talk about, because I could dedicate a whole hour to just this. So your marketing is really going to impact the demand side of your business. So it might be, very simply put, that your product or service doesn't deliver. Now, that might not necessarily be that you don't have a good product or service. It might be that based on the expectations of your target market, you are not delivering. That is a bad place to be. That can completely hinder your growth. It could also be that you don't have the right target market, that you have been trying to go after a market and they're really not the market that you should be going after based on the pain points that you are solving. So you might need to kind of retool either the product or service or the market that you're going after and have a little bit better understanding of either the target market that you want to target to, I shouldn't say target 1,000 times, but you want to be able to retool the market that you are trying to target, or you might need to kind of understand a little bit more so that you can retool what it is that you have. There might also be a challenge with your distribution. And that might come down to something like you thought that this would be sold online, but really it's something where your customers want more hands-on interaction with a salesperson. And so you really do need to maybe have an affiliate kind of arrangement, or maybe there is a product that is already out there that you are essentially providing an add-on to it. Maybe you can partner with them in a unique way. So there are all kinds of different ways that you can change your distribution channel. It doesn't mean that you are just completely stuck in the water. You're just going to have to think about it differently, and that can largely be that can be based on the expectations of your target market, and those can change over time. It might be that your advertising or just your general promotional plan is not working. And when I say advertising, I don't mean just TV or radio, and I don't mean promotions like dropping your price by $100. I mean literally anything that is promoting your product or advertising your product in the marketplace. It might simply not really speak to the target market that you have or that you're wanting to focus your energy on. And that can be an easy change, or that can be a really challenging change. So it really depends on your industry or on the product or service that you have. And then the final one is pricing. And some of you might say, well, isn't pricing a financial thing? And pricing is certainly, it is, the foundation of your finances in most situations. But pricing is a marketing issue. And not only could your price be potentially too high, it might be too low. You might be offering such incredible value that people read that and they're trying to haggle with you on that particular price. It's like, wait, this is just not, I actually need to price higher because I'm trying to attract a different kind of audience. And so people hear pricing issues and they think, well, I'm going to have to drop my prices. And that is not necessarily the case. But something that also might impact pricing is that you might have competitors that are in your same category who might have changed their own pricing based on what you've done. And I will say, just in general, you do not only want to compete on pricing. That is a very dangerous game to play, and it's not necessarily very financially lucrative for you, even if you win. But it is really helpful to think through things like value pricing. And what I mean by that is, what is the value to your target market, not just how do you cover your own costs. So, for example, if I want to do something for working moms, and it takes about an hour of my time, and I have $50 worth of resources, and I want a 10% profit. So we'll just say that all adds up to like $165. So do I price it around that? Or do I think about, okay, well, this is actually going to save my target 4 hours of time, and that is worth $1,000. So there's a huge difference between 165 and 1,000, but that gives you a much bigger area of wiggle room, and that can change your growth trajectory because it can be based on revenue as well as on actually providing more services or products to a particular audience. And I will say, just kind of in general, again, you want to think about that idea of understanding what your target market needs in order to be able to address these marketing issues, because that's really kind of going to be the baseline of how you deal with these challenges. And then the final one is financials. And there's actually somebody who's going to talk about financials, especially as it relates to tax stuff. But I think financials in general this is one of the areas that entrepreneurs seem to struggle with the most. And you want your money and you want your financials to work for you. And that means a lot of different things. That means things like, are you anticipating expenses not only as a cost, but at the right time? Are you taking on too many expenses at one time? And essentially shiny object syndrome, where you kind of get distracted by a lot of things that are like of the moment or seem really interesting. There are costs associated with all of those shiny objects. And so have you taken on too much of that, have you taken on too many expenses related to those shiny objects? Or is it something like being able to renegotiate contracts or consider your payment terms? And the reason why I even mention that is the last role that I had at the large marketing agency that I worked at before I became an entrepreneur, I was a financial strategist, and there was such a huge difference in billing a client at the beginning of the month and billing them at the end of the month, because the payment terms were 30 days. And so if you think about it, if you're talking about a month of time and you bill them at the beginning of the month, basically by the time you finish with with the product or service, you're getting paid for it. But if you bill them at the end of that month and they have 30 days to pay you, that's essentially 60 days where you're having to float that cost. And so that might not be the best way to deal with your financials. But if you're not thinking through what are the repercussions of your financial decisions, that can actually have a huge impact on your business. And those financial issues can really slow you down from a growth trajectory. And there might be financial tools that can keep you in check. It can be, things like, are you paying yourself enough, or are you investing enough in your business? It might be that you need to have a better understanding of the level of debt that you can actually take on, which is really important as you grow your business. There might need to be some debt that you need to take on, at least initially. And you might need to reach out for financial help. This is one of those areas that I hear over and over again that people reach out for, whether it's bookkeeping or having a conversation with a financial consultant or a financial expert in general on small business. And there are, you can even find mentors through the Small Business Association, through the SBA, on these kinds of challenges, whether it's operations, financial, or marketing. So don't hesitate to reach out. And you can also get mentors through groups like SCORE. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, we've talked about the business plan. Let's talk about actually planning for your growth, some of the general strategies that you can take on in order to grow your business. Okay, so there are a few specific kind of strategies that I want to be able to mention to you all. So the first is creating a deeper niche that you are currently in. The idea is that you are going to provide more products, more services to your current target. And the idea is that you're going to be able to do things like cross-promote or bundle your products in a different way. You know, it's like, okay, well, I already offer this product. Well, maybe I can offer this service to add on to this particular product. Or maybe I offer service A and I'm going to start offering service B. And that can be to upsell, or that can be to offer a slightly cheaper service or product. You know, so there are different ways that you can do that, but the idea is that you have a target, you know it incredibly well, and there might be adjustments that you have to make, but it is all about owning your current niche. And I know some people struggle with this, and it's the idea of niching down can actually be even more lucrative for you. The more markets that you try to hit, generally the smaller percentage of each of those targets you get, whereas you could own a niche. Like you could be the expert that everybody goes to, and that can be a really, really financially beneficial place for you to be. But that really does require that you grow your expertise, and you have to be ahead of all of the trends, and you have to really understand what's going on in that particular target and that particular part of the industry. The next one is that you can focus on a new market, and that can be that you're realizing that there is a new market opportunity that's out there, and you need to be able to understand, do you need to make adjustments for the product or service that you currently have? And so I will give the example of several years ago, I worked with an entrepreneur who was in the, he did technology, but he was creating a prototype of something that was related to the air conditioning industry that would specifically target hotels. I know that sounds incredibly sexy, but it was actually very interesting. But what I figured out as I did the market analysis and the market opportunity was this was a dying industry. And so he was going to be able to make a killing for about 10 years, and then the market was gone. Literally, there was no, like, the market would have died. And so he would have had what is essentially considered a cash cow for about 10 years, maybe a year or two past that. And granted, that's been several years since I worked on that project, but it was trying to understand, does he want to go into that new market and to take the risk and to have to kind of retool some of the product or service a little bit, because it would have required a little bit of an adjustment. So, but that would have created a whole new offering, because not only would there have been a product that was slightly different than his previous product, he could have offered services that piggybacked on that. So that's part of the reason why it would have been incredibly lucrative. And the part of the challenge in all of that is you have to figure out how you can actually show your expertise. It might not be as easy as saying, well, I did it in this other category. It might be that you need to not just plant those seeds, but really kind of show how have you made a difference in that other category, and how can you bring that knowledge to the current category, because you are generally in the same product or service. You are just focusing on a new market. The next one is really where you're creating both. So you're doing a new market and a new product at the same time. And I think this is one of those areas that can be very interesting for entrepreneurs, because sometimes you don't want to have to choose between one product/target and another product/target. And so you want to be able to do both. So this is, for example, an opportunity when you want to create a new revenue stream. And the example that I can give is essentially that I wrote a book. And so the book is essentially targeted on working moms. It's related to having more work-life balance and to transitioning to a part-time role. That has nothing to do with my strategic marketing business. Those are two completely unrelated revenue streams. And that's okay for me, and that makes it so that I don't have to choose. But I think that that is one of those things that sometimes people struggle with because they feel that they have to do one or the other. The challenge with doing the new market and the new product is, at the same time, essentially, is that it's almost like you're starting from scratch. You have to develop all of the same things. You might have to redo parts of your business plan. You might have to create a whole new business plan. But you need to understand, what is the market opportunity? What is the new offering? Can you just adjust a product or service, or do you have to completely come up with a new product or service, even if it's in the same category? You might need to show your expertise or the fact that you were an expert in another category and how that can apply. It might not be that your product or service is the same, but it might be that it's another service industry. And so you can draw some of what you know about service from one industry and apply it to another industry. So you might have to think a little differently about what that looks like. But it can still be a great opportunity, and that also means that you don't necessarily have to shut down a current business that you have. And then the final one is that there are opportunities in government or diversity initiatives that I don't think that a lot of small business owners really think about. And especially if you are a woman-owned business, that is another category within diversity. And so there might be, and this doesn't apply to all industries, but in the specific industry or niche that you are in, there might be a need for government contracts. And there, you can have this on a local level, the state, the federal level. It can be for the military. It can be for departments that actually work with various states at the same time. There are all kinds of different ways that you can look at these government opportunities, but they are out there, and they can make a huge difference in your business. And some of you might say, this totally doesn't apply to what I do. There is no government element to this, which is fine. But there might be an industry focus on diversity suppliers. And so almost every large business has some kind of diversity supplier program. Now, what they focus on can vary from company to company. Some it is about small business or women-owned business. For others, it might be veteran-owned businesses. So it can vary greatly from one company to the next. But there is a huge opportunity in providing some kind of service and to some extent products as well under these diversity supplier programs. And you literally just kind of have to do some Googling, and there might be things that are promoted through your Chamber of Commerce where if there are really large companies that are nearby, they might say, such and such company, AT&T is going to be talking to diversity suppliers on December 1st. And they might be able to tell you what some of those areas are. That might require certification. More often than not, it does require certification. And certification can feel like this really scary element, but it is not a really scary element. And there are all kinds of different certification programs, so it really depends on what you're being certified in. But the other thing that I recommend is being able to talk to some of these larger companies about mentorship. That large marketing agency that I worked for, they had two really big pieces of business. One was government, one was one of the largest companies in the United States. And they actually mentored different kinds of diversity suppliers because they needed those diversity suppliers to exist from one year to the next. So they help them understand the certification process. They help them think through business decisions. So that might be something that is offered within your community. So look for those kinds of programs as well. Okay, so I wanted you all to think about a toolkit that might help you from a growth perspective and to kind of keep things moving in the right direction. So the first one that I want to talk about is processes and templates. As you grow in your business, a lot of times you're growing so fast that you don't really slow down to think about what processes or what templates do I need to put in place. And when it comes to process, a lot of times it's really easy to just start by writing things down so that you know how how it procedurally works. And that can really help you as you bring on more people onto your team, because it's an already established written thing, and you can see where you might be able to tweak it instead of having to have somebody watch whoever does it now for a week in order to be able to do it themselves. And there might be all kinds of templates that you can put in place, whether it's for an initial proposal, for a contract. If you are talking about a contract, I highly recommend that you have a legal professional look at it. The one thing I am going to mention about the contract is something that is incredibly helpful, that is going to save you a lot of time, and to be quite blunt, a lot of legal fees, is if you can put your scope of work as an appendix, and if you can put financial information, so if you are basing it on hours or headcount or whatever that is, instead of including that in the body of the contract, if you can include that in the appendix, that is going to save you a lot of time, because instead of having to deal with it every year, if this is like a yearly contract, you only have to look at those appendices. That's all you're only looking at exhibits or appendices, and you literally, in the contract itself, you can put like the dollar amount and then say refer to Exhibit A for further information, or look at scope of work. The scope of work will include different products and services that are mentioned in Exhibit B. But that's going to save you a lot of time over the course of time. There might be things that when you first start with a client, so they are already an actual client, what are the things that you need them to, what kinds of information do you need for them to give you in order for you to be the most efficient and effective with your time? Create a template for that, or create a process. There are all kinds of project management tools out there, like an Asana or a Trello, that might help you speed up your processes. There are measurement tools as well that might be able to help you figure these things out, or maybe there are financial templates that you need to create, even if that's invoicing, so that you don't have to do that every single time you have to invoice. The next one is mentors and sponsors. And part of the reason why I include this is a lot of people understand the benefit of mentors, because they really are their guides on your career, on your business decisions, all those kinds of things. It's really helpful to have someone who has been in your shoes. So you want at least one person who is an entrepreneur. If you are a working mom, I recommend having somebody who is a working mom as one of your mentors. You want a lot of different voices, so you don't only want marketing people on your, essentially on your board of directors, on your own personal board of directors, even though you might be a marketing person. You want somebody to be able to talk to you from a financial perspective, or someone who can talk to you from an operations perspective. You want those other voices, because they are going to complement what it is that you know. And there is the opportunity to actually do peer-to-peer mentorship. So, for example, I have 3 friends, and we have formed a mastermind, and we have related skills, but we are not, there's not huge overlap in what it is that we have areas of expertise in. And so we can actually mentor each other from the perspective of, oh, this is how I dealt with that in a similar client situation. Now, what I don't think that entrepreneurs spend enough time and energy trying to find is sponsors. And these are, if you think of mentors as, as guides, and they're people who you can have as like sounding boards, sponsors are action-oriented. These are the people who are actually going to create opportunities for you. And they are going to give you access to their networks, whether that's potential clients or people who you could have on your team. If you are looking for some kind of investment, they could give you access to funding, because it might be a VC that they have worked with. It might be an angel investor who they know incredibly well, who they say, listen, Suzanne has this incredible business, and I think it is worth the investment of your money. And that makes the sale, from my perspective, that much easier. So sponsors are incredibly important. And these might be individuals who you have worked with at a large company, and they can continue to have a role in your career just when you become an entrepreneur. So definitely keep these kinds of roles in mind. The next one to consider is networking where you are. I think one of the things is that a lot of times before someone becomes an entrepreneur, they think about just cutting off the side of your career where you worked as a company and then just starting a business. And that's actually really hard to do. And so being able to talk to some of your current company contacts, maybe they're not people who are on your specific team, but maybe they're in other departments, and you could provide a service for that particular other department or that other team. It might be that you talk to current clients. You don't necessarily want to say, here's what I'm planning to do. If this is one of those situations where this is a side gig and you're trying to make it into a bigger, into your main focus, you want to bring along clients with you, right? And so being able to network with these people and truly show that you have an incredibly deep understanding of their business, but you don't want to have to go talk to those people after you start your business and after you're looking at growth. You want to have those conversations so that they're almost like lined up before that even happens. There is the opportunity to do online coffee chats where essentially it's like a virtual coffee. You're in one place, they're in another place. You're able to have a conversation. Instead of doing it on the phone, just do it over Skype. And that way there's a face that goes along with the voice. But they can be incredibly helpful, and it can be because a friend of yours said, hey, I'd love to introduce you to somebody, and I live in Austin, Texas, but she lives in Boston. I still want to talk to that person in Boston. If you are a parent, being able to talk to other parents at your child's school, that is a completely underutilized opportunity as far as networking and growing your business. Because a lot of times we know these people, but we don't really talk to them about what we're trying to achieve in our business. You could have neighbors that might not really know what it is that you do, and they're looking for exactly what you do. And so part of that is seeing where there are opportunities where you can talk to these people, because so many neighborhoods have some kind of neighborhood event. And so you want to spend time with the people that you know, and then you want to be able to talk to people who are new to you, even though they might live not even a mile from your house. And then the final one is social events. There are how many happy hours do you go to, or birthday parties for your friends, or whatever kind of social interaction. And you often stay with the people who you know. And so I challenge you to have those conversations with the people that you know, and then to talk to other people. Perfect example, I was at a gala this past week, and my husband was with me, and oftentimes when I am with my husband, we are talking amongst ourselves, even though this is a gala, and there's an awards element to it, so that's kind of the main focus of it. And you just listen in, and you don't necessarily network with anybody new. Well, someone who was at the table kind of joined in our conversation, and he is actually a potential client for me. He and I could definitely do business together because I asked him all sorts of questions and really kind of uncovered that we have a huge overlap in our businesses. So, and I was already there. Why not have the conversation with somebody new? So I'm going to kind of fly through these two last ones because I want to be able to leave some room for questions. So self-care is one of those things that as an entrepreneur, you might think, whatever, this doesn't really apply to me. And here's the challenge. Entrepreneurship is in many ways kind of a long game. You might read about things with like, with my first launch, I made $1 million. And sure, there are those kinds of stories, but those are kind of few and far between. And it is important to practice self-care as an entrepreneur, or else you're going to burn out. That's just the simple reality. All of us could work just a few more hours each day, but maybe it's that you need to get to sleep. And so that's why I mentioned the 360-degree view of it, because you need to continue to eat well, exercise, sleep enough, drink enough water, like all of those simple things. And understand that it's very personalized. It doesn't need to be that you go to the spa every week, unless you want to. But it can be a very personalized thing. And there's really small things that you can do. Like I do a morning check-in every day where I just see what adjustments I need to make. And if I need to do a quick moment of meditation, it literally only takes me a few minutes, but it puts me in a much better mindset. Or it might be that you read a book. And they have actually done research that shows that if you read a book, it can lower your heart rate if you read a book for 6 minutes. Don't read anything associated with your business. I wouldn't read like it, but read something that you find enjoyable. And figure out how to do this on a daily or weekly basis, so it's not like once a quarter I'm going to do self-care. Like, there really is the danger of burnout as an entrepreneur. And so these are my final thoughts because, as I said, this is a long game. So there is a constant learning when it comes to entrepreneurship. That is integral to growth. That is incredibly important. When you look at your business, you need to be able to understand what are the things that you need to have that are constant and what are the things that you need to be able to change. And different elements of your business might be constant at some points and then need to change at other points. And so you kind of have to understand which it is and what element of your business. But don't think that everything has to change as you grow. There are definitely some things that you want to keep consistent. A lot of entrepreneurship and growth is about having the right tool, the right people, the right timing. Like it's a matter of that same element that impacts your target market and being able to sell them the right product at the right time to the right people. It's the same thing for growing your business. You need to have the right people. It might not be the right time to invest in an area of growth. So, you need to just kind of be patient. And remember, it really is a long game. Most people aren't in entrepreneurship for 2 months. They're in entrepreneurship for years. And so I'm a huge proponent of slow and steady. So I will leave you with one final thing, and that is I have had a lot of questions come up specifically about time to look at business plans and to strategize. And so I have started doing 20-minute strategy sessions. And so because some people don't necessarily want to have a business coach, which I am not a business coach, by the way, or they don't want to have a whole hour-long session. They're like, I just need to strategize for 20 minutes. And if you are interested in that, the website for that is momempowerment.com/20, like the number 20, minute strategy. And I bet I can get that to Russ, and he can share that if you are interested. And if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I am happy to talk to you there. I would love, if you have found this helpful, if you could actually write something about it on my LinkedIn profile. It never hurts to have those conversations and to have those kinds of testimonials. So Russ, we have just a few minutes, so are there any questions that I can answer?
Certainly, Suzanne. And just to confirm, we'll make sure that everybody who's attended this amazing session gets that information about the offer for the 20-minute strategy session. Sounds absolutely excellent and a real huge amount of benefit that everybody will get from that. Amazing that you managed to get through as much as you did in such a condensed amount of time, Suzanne. So thank you for doing that. Now, we have got some questions. We've got time just for a few. And looking here, this is one that you mentioned at the beginning, making sure that you understood the competition. In your opinion, would you suggest looking at competitors, doing a competitive analysis internally, or can you outsource to somebody to do that?
You can do both. What it really comes down to is how much time can you dedicate to doing a competitive analysis. And it might be somebody who's on your team who can do it, but if it is going to be a really kind of haphazard version of competitive analysis, I recommend actually outsourcing it and giving whatever information that you have initially, and then having that person do a lot more analysis of what is out there and being able to give an idea of your expectations. What is it that you expect back? Is it that there are just these 5 competitors, or do you want to be able to look at substitutes as well as competitors? And that way you get back what you actually want, and you don't have to take time and energy away from servicing your current customers.
Excellent. And a difficult question to answer, as you say. It is definitely about making sure that you're utilizing resources to get that information. So looking here as well, this is a question that's come in. So somebody is saying here that their business is growing well, but invoicing, cash flow, as many of us will be aware, is challenging. And now this is possibly a difficult one as well, but is hiring a full-time finance manager a worthwhile investment, or should they be looking at increasing sales by employing more salespeople? They've put a note that they can't afford both.
So I think it comes down to a lot of times that element of invoicing and honestly chasing the money can take a lot of energy. And so if that is the case, being able to hire a financial expert who deals with small business finances, where you literally just utilize time, or you say, I need to be able to invoice these 10 clients, and I need you to chase the money. That way, your cash flow there's actually more cash flow, right? Like you're not having to chase after that, and that's not having to detract from what it is that you're trying to achieve. And that way, you don't have a full-time person on your staff. You are actually paying for the time that is being used. So there are definitely those people that are in the workplace. In fact, somebody who is going to be presenting does that for his clients, Brian Walls. And so you pay for the time that you use with him instead of actually having to hire him as like a person on your staff. And that way, if it turns out that you can hire a salesperson, and remember, you don't have to hire any of these roles full-time. There are people who have tremendous skill sets who work part-time, and that way it's a portion of a full-time salary, or you can arrange it so that there's a salary plus a commission basis. And so there's an incentive behind, maybe it's about getting the money in less than 15 days. Or there are lots of different ways that you can structure it, and so you can be creative from the financial perspective. And I don't mean creative as in like the illegal go to jail way, but I mean as in creative in how you actually structure things so that you're all working towards the same end goals with your clients.
Now, great advice. And on a similar type of note here, this is about employees. Have you personally used any interns? Any tips for using interns at all?
So interns in general, I actually have had a lot of interns over time. And it's really because the way that I've done internships is it was a semester opportunity. So that's why they rotated out. One, I highly recommend that it be paid. And part of the reason for that is there are lots of rules and regulations around internships now. When I was an intern, I didn't have to be paid. I didn't have to get credit, none of those things. We won't talk about how long ago that was. But having them be paid, and part of the reason for that, for example, in the state of Texas, if they are doing something that is integral to your business. So for example, I've heard people say, well, I'm just going to have an intern do social media. Okay, but if social media is integral to your business, they must be paid, even if they are getting college credit in the state of Texas. So you have to be very careful. But I think the most important thing when you have an intern, so let's assume you get all of the specifics down from a structural and financial perspective. Having their scope be well-defined is incredibly helpful. So whether it is that they work on a specific project or they have a specific kind of role, if you can clearly define the parameters of that, and there might be things that you can add on over time, but having that clear definition is going to be incredibly helpful to you and to the intern. But that way you're making the most of their time, and it's not like, oh, today could you do this? Oh, tomorrow could you do that? They know exactly what they're coming in for, and so do you. So you know when things are going to be done.
That's excellent advice. Really good, Suzanne. We've got time for one last question. There are lots.
There's an easy one that I can answer because I saw it. So, mentors, do they expect to be financially rewarded? No. So you want somebody who is engaged in your career, who might have a vested interest in you doing well. It might be that you that they want you to eventually take over their business. I mean, there could be lots of reasons for their desire to be your mentor, but that is not really the purpose. Now, it never hurts for you to have like a referral fee, but they are not like a board of directors that gets paid for their time. So I would not, anyone who says, pay me for my time and I'll be your mentor, I would probably shy away from.
Excellent. Suzanne, that's been a brilliant session. I've learned a great deal today, and I'm sure that everybody who's joined us has as well. There are a couple of people who have asked about recordings of the webinar, so yes, I can confirm recordings of this session and all others over the course of the virtual summit this week will be available to view again here on the Bright Talk platform. We'll also make sure that the deck is emailed to you. If you haven't already done so, please make sure that you register for and that you attend the other sessions taking place today and tomorrow. We've got some great sessions later today, including how to take your business to the next level, which is this one, the building your brand, creating the win-win scenario through negotiating. So please do join us for those. Please also remember to visit napw.com for details of the benefits that membership brings. And it just brings me to close by saying a massive thanks to you, Suzanne, for an excellent session. And thank you to everybody for joining us. I look forward to welcoming you to the other virtual seminar sessions over the next couple of days. Thank you very much indeed.